All you homeowners have unique needs. Some feel the need to leave up holiday decorations year-round. Others have the need to use their garage as practice space for their new metal band. And because each homeowner has unique needs, Geico helps you get the right coverage for your home and what's in it. That way, you get exactly what's right for you, even if your needs are unique. Get more with Geico.
My name is Daniel Marsh. Last time, I told you about a catastrophic security breach that left 4 American soldiers dead and 3 captured in Yemen. A special operations team led by Captain Mira Santiago walked into a perfectly orchestrated trap. A trap made possible because someone gained access to a signal chat group where high-level government officials were discussing classified military operations. This is Signal Lost, March 16th, 2025. Washington, D.C., 7:32 a.m. The news hadn't broken yet. 4 American soldiers were dead on foreign soil, 3 more in enemy hands, and the American public remained blissfully unaware. That would change within hours, but for now, a small circle of government officials scrambled to understand what had gone catastrophically wrong. In the White House Situation Room, the atmosphere was funereal. National Security Advisor Reynolds sat stone-faced at the conference table, his fingers steepled before him, as various military and intelligence officials delivered their preliminary assessments. None of them had slept. The coffee had grown cold in their cups. The weight of lives lost hung in the air like smoke. The ambush was too precise, General Harris, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, was saying. His voice carried the weathered authority of a man who had seen combat across 4 decades. They knew exactly where our people would be and when. This wasn't luck or good intelligence on their part. This was a compromise. Reynolds felt Mira Patel's eyes on him from across the table. She hadn't spoken since sharing her discovery about the unknown number in the signal group. She didn't need to. Her silence was accusation enough. The president entered, and everyone rose. He looked as though he'd aged 5 years overnight. "I want answers," he said simply, taking his seat. "And I want options for getting our people back." Reynolds cleared his throat. "Mr. President, we're exploring all possibilities for how the operation was compromised. In the meantime, CENTCOM has mobilized rescue assets, and intelligence is working to locate the captives." "What about this signal business?" the president asked, his eyes boring into Reynolds. "My chief of staff tells me there's concern about operational security." A cold sweat broke out on Reynolds' forehead. Mira had gone to the chief of staff. Of course she had. "We used Signal for coordination, sir, but there's no evidence yet that it was the source of the leak." The lie felt bitter on his tongue. Mira stiffened visibly, but remained silent, professional to the core. The president's eyes narrowed. "I expect a full security audit. Every communication channel. Every person with knowledge of the operation. If someone betrayed our people, I want to know who, and I want them held accountable." As the meeting continued, Reynolds found himself increasingly isolated. Colleagues who had joked with him yesterday now avoided eye contact. The Secretary of Defense, who had enthusiastically participated in the signal chat, was conspicuously redirecting blame toward intelligence failures. The vultures were already circling, looking for someone to take the fall. Reynolds knew the rules of Washington well enough to recognize when a sacrifice was being prepared. Meanwhile, across town in Georgetown, Eliza Morgan was experiencing her own crisis of conscience. She had witnessed in real time the planning that had led to American deaths. She had evidence that top officials had violated basic security protocols. It was the story of a lifetime. And yet, she hesitated. Publishing now could compromise efforts to rescue the captured soldiers. It could damage national security in ways she couldn't fully anticipate. But waiting meant giving those responsible time to cover their tracks, to create narratives that absolved them of responsibility. She called me that morning, her voice tight with tension. "Daniel, I need your advice," she said. "I've got screenshots of the entire signal conversation. Names, operational details, timestamps, Everything. It proves they were recklessly using an unsecured platform for classified communications. It proves they got those soldiers killed. You need to be very careful, I told her. This isn't just a story. If you have what you say you have, there are people who would kill to keep it quiet. I know, she said quietly. That's why I've made insurance arrangements. If anything happens to me, copies go to you and 2 other journalists. A chill ran through me. I'd known Eliza for years, and she'd never been prone to paranoia. Have you approached any officials? I asked. Not yet, she replied. But I'm considering contacting the Inspector General for the Defense Department. They're supposed to be independent. No one's truly independent in this town, I warned her. Especially not with something this explosive. After we hung up, Eliza began methodically compiling her evidence. She created a secure archive of screenshots, notes, and timestamps. She had worked national security long enough to know how official denials would play out. They would claim the chat was just for scheduling. They would say no classified information was shared. Her evidence needed to be airtight. As she reviewed the messages, she noticed something she'd initially overlooked. The pattern of irregular communications from the account labeled DNI Harris. She'd assumed it was simply the Director of National Intelligence using different styles when rushed or dictating messages to an aide. Now she saw it more clearly. 2 distinct writing patterns from the same account. She began separating the messages, creating 2 columns on her laptop. Sure enough, there were undeniable linguistic differences. One user wrote in complete formal sentences with precise punctuation. The other used shorter phrases, abbreviations, and seemed less concerned with grammatical precision. Same account, almost certainly different people. Someone had compromised the DNI's Signal account, or perhaps the DNI was sharing access with someone else, which would be another serious security violation. Either way, it was a digital footprint that shouldn't exist. In Yemen, Captain Maya Santiago drifted in and out of consciousness. The pain from her shrapnel wounds kept her tethered to reality, which was both a blessing and a curse. The room where they held her was windowless and smelled of mold and something metallic. Blood, probably her own. Her captors had bandaged her injuries roughly, but effectively. They wanted her alive, at least for now. Through the haze of pain and dehydration, Santiago focused on gathering intelligence. Her training had prepared her for this possibility, however remote it had seemed when they'd boarded the helicopters yesterday. She listened for voices, footsteps, any clue about where she was being held and by whom. The voices she heard weren't what she expected. Not the local dialect, not even Arabic, at least not primarily. She caught fragments of conversations in English, Russian, and what sounded like Farsi. Professional mercenaries, not local insurgents. This wasn't a standard capture by hostile forces. This was something else entirely. When they came for her, they came with a doctor, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and gentle hands that contrasted with his cold eyes. He examined her wounds, replaced bandages, and administered antibiotics through an IV. He spoke to her in accented English. "You are fortunate," he said, checking her pupils with a penlight. "The shrapnel missed major vessels. You will recover if infection does not set in." "Where are my people?" Santiago asked, her voice a dry rasp. The doctor's expression revealed nothing. "I treat only you." "Who are you working for?" A thin smile. "I work for whoever pays. Today, that is not your government." Later, a different man entered, tall, with close-cropped gray hair and the unmistakable bearing of military training. He carried himself like an officer, someone accustomed to command. His English was impeccable, with only the faintest Eastern European accent. "Captain Santiago," he said, pulling up a metal chair beside her cot. "I hope the doctor has made you comfortable." Santiago said nothing, maintaining the blank expression she had practiced for precisely this scenario. "You're wondering why you're still alive. the man continued. Why we went to such lengths to capture you specifically. Why we treated your wounds instead of simply killing you like your colleagues. A flicker of pain crossed Santiago's face at the mention of her dead team members. She suppressed it immediately, but not before her captor noticed. You have something we want, he said, leaning forward. Access, codes, authentication credentials, the digital keys to certain American systems. Santiago almost laughed despite the pain. You staged an elaborate ambush because you think I carry classified access codes into combat? The man's smile never reached his eyes. Not all combat is physical, Captain. The battlefield has evolved. You have access to systems that interest my employer. Your biometrics alone are valuable. But your willing cooperation would be more efficient. I won't help you, Santiago said flatly. Not yet, the man agreed, standing. But people change their minds when properly motivated. We have your colleagues as well, remember? Sometimes, watching others suffer is more persuasive than personal pain. After he left, Santiago fought against despair. The pieces were beginning to align. This wasn't a random capture or even a retaliatory strike against American forces. This was a targeted operation to gain access to secure systems. Systems she indeed had credentials for as a special operations commander. The implications were staggering. This wasn't just about Yemen or insurgents or regional conflicts. Someone wanted access to American military networks, and they'd orchestrated an elaborate trap to get it, which meant they likely had inside information about her mission, about her clearance levels, about her role. Someone had sold her out, and she was determined to find out who.
In a world of smartphones and quantum computing, the fate of nations rests on technology from the past. Calaroga Shark Media presents a new podcast, Pager Protocol, a 10-part espionage thriller that will change the way audiences see the world. As an unusually large shipment of pagers makes its way to a volatile region, CIA analyst Sarah Miller grows suspicious. Meanwhile, in Zion City, Nexus Director Amos Ben David sets a daring plan in motion. Agent Eli Cohen is tasked with a mission that could determine the fate of his nation and reshape the entire region. Pager Protocol is available now wherever you get your podcasts.
Back in Washington, the first press reports about the failed Yemen operation were beginning to emerge. Initial Pentagon statements acknowledged only that an operation had taken place and that there were casualties being assessed. No mention of captured personnel. No details about the mission's purpose. The sanitized public narrative was already being constructed. In his office at the White House, Reynolds was frantically trying to contain the damage. He had ordered the signal group deleted, but he knew that digital footprints were never truly erased. The messages had been set to disappear after 24 hours, but screenshots could exist. Server logs could be subpoenaed. The truth had a way of emerging, especially in Washington. His phone rang. Private number. Reynolds, he answered tersely. We need to meet. The voice belonged to Franklin Webb, CEO of Obsidian Security Solutions, a private military contractor with extensive government contracts. Webb's company had provided intelligence support for Operation Sandstorm. Not a good time, Frank. Make time, Webb replied, his tone leaving no room for argument. The Jefferson Memorial. 1 hour. Come alone. Reynolds wanted to refuse, but Webb had been a major campaign donor to the president. His company employed former Special Forces operators, intelligence analysts, and cyber experts who supplemented America's official military capabilities. He wasn't someone Reynolds could afford to alienate, especially now. Fine, Reynolds said, ending the call. An hour later, Reynolds found Webb waiting on a bench with a view of the tidal basin. Cherry blossoms were beginning to emerge, pink buds promising eventual beauty after the long winter. Few tourists were around on this cold March morning. Webb didn't waste time on pleasantries. You have a serious problem. I'm aware, Reynolds replied stiffly. No, I don't think you are. Webb handed him a manila envelope. Someone accessed the DNI's Signal account 2 days before the operation. They monitored every message. They knew exactly what you were planning, where your teams would be, and when they would arrive. Reynolds opened the envelope. Inside was a technical report detailing the infiltration of Director Harris's Signal account. How did you get this? My company provides cybersecurity services to various agencies. We detected anomalies but couldn't confirm the breach until after the fact. Webb's face was grim. This wasn't some random hack. This was a sophisticated operation targeting specific officials involved in planning the Yemen mission. Why bring this to me instead of proper channels? Webb's laugh was short and humorless. Because proper channels are compromised. Think about it. Someone had to add the unknown number to your signal group. Someone with access. Someone on the inside. The implication hung in the air between them. A traitor in the highest levels of government. What do you want? Reynolds asked finally. The same thing you want. To find who's responsible and limit the damage. Webb stood, buttoning his coat against the chill. My company has resources that can operate outside official constraints. Let us help you. And why would you do that? Webb's smile was thin. Let's just say we have aligned interests. The success of companies like mine depends on American military dominance. If your enemies can compromise your most sensitive operations, that's bad for business. As Webb walked away, Reynolds was left with the unsettling feeling that he was being manipulated, but he was running out of options and allies. If Webb's information was accurate, the breach was far worse than he had imagined. And the hunt for the culprit would lead into the heart of America's national security establishment. Meanwhile, in a basement apartment in Northern Virginia, a man we'll call Alex finished transferring the last of the files from his laptop to an encrypted drive. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, his face illuminated by the blue glow of the screen. He had been monitoring the fallout from the Yemen operation with professional detachment. The operation had gone exactly as planned. American forces ambushed, valuable assets captured, confusion and finger-pointing among officials. Now came the more challenging phase, leveraging the captured special operations personnel to gain access to secure military networks. The face of Captain Santiago appeared on his screen. Her military ID photo, alongside her service record and security clearance details. The kind of information that should never have been accessible to someone like him. His phone vibrated with an encrypted message. Confirm package secure. He typed a response. Confirmed. Phase 2. Initiating. Alex closed his laptop and looked around the sparse apartment. Time to move. The safe house had served its purpose, but staying in one location too long was risky, especially now that people would be looking for connections. He packed methodically, wiping down surfaces to remove fingerprints. The digital trail was harder to erase, but he had taken precautions. Multiple proxies, spoofed IP addresses, burner devices purchased with cash. Still, he knew better than to underestimate American intelligence capabilities. They would be hunting for him now, piecing together fragments of evidence, following the digital breadcrumbs. But they would be looking in the wrong places. The beauty of the operation was its misdirection. By the time they understood what had really happened, it would be too late. As Eliza Morgan continued analyzing the signal messages, a new pattern emerged. She created a timeline of every message, noting who sent it and when. Then she cross-referenced this with public information about the participants' known locations during those timeframes. A discrepancy emerged. Secretary of Defense Garrison had sent messages during a period when he was publicly documented as being in a classified briefing with no electronic devices allowed. Either the public schedule was false, or someone else had been using his account. She needed to verify this discrepancy before going public. She needed a source who could confirm Garrison's actual whereabouts without revealing her investigation. Eliza scrolled through her contacts, considering and rejecting names until she landed on Marcus Reed, a mid-level Pentagon press officer she'd cultivated over the years. He wasn't senior enough to be directly involved in Operation Sandstorm, but he had access to the building's security logs and the secretary's detailed schedule. She called him, keeping her tone casual, asking about an unrelated story while working the conversation around the secretary's recent activities. Reed was cautious but helpful, confirming that Garrison had indeed been in a skiff during the time in question, with all electronic devices surrendered at the door as per protocol. Another digital footprint that shouldn't exist. Another piece of the puzzle. After hanging up, Eliza sat back, the implications washing over her. This wasn't just negligence or poor security practices. This was deliberate deception. Somewhere in the highest levels of government, someone was impersonating senior officials, inserting themselves into classified communications. The question was no longer just how the Yemen operation had been compromised, but why? What was the endgame? Who stood to benefit from the ambush of an American special operations team? As night fell over Washington, different players in this unfolding drama reached their own conclusions and made their moves. Reynolds accepted Webb's offer of unofficial assistance, authorizing the private contractor to conduct a parallel investigation outside government channels. Mira Patel, increasingly concerned about Reynolds' behavior, reached out to a trusted contact at the FBI's National Security Branch, sharing her suspicions while being careful not to reveal classified details. In the White House, the president authorized a top-secret task force to determine how the operation had been compromised and to develop options for rescuing the captured Americans. And in Yemen, Captain Santiago began working on her own plan. Her captors had made a critical mistake. They had assumed her tactical value lay solely in her access credentials. They had underestimated her training, her resourcefulness, and most importantly, her determination. As she lay in her makeshift cell, timing the guard rotations and testing her injured body's capabilities, Santiago made a promise to herself and her fallen comrades. She would escape, she would survive, and she would expose whoever had betrayed them, no matter how high the conspiracy reached. The digital footprints were everywhere now, in signal chats, in authentication logs, in the electronic ghosts of messages that should never have existed. The evidence was fragmenting, spreading across systems and agencies, becoming harder to track or contain. But the truth was there, hidden in the data. And 3 separate investigations were now converging on it from different directions. The hunt was on. The only question was who would find the answers first, and what they would do with them.
Signal Lost is a production of Calaroga Shark Media. Executive producers Mark Francis and John McDermott. The assistance of AI was used in the production of this show.
Miami. Neon dreams. Dark desires. A killer stalks the streets, turning murder into macabre art. Introducing a new limited series podcast from Calaroga Shark Media. The Artist, A Killer's Canvas. This podcast is rated R, intended for mature audiences. The Artist, A Killer's Canvas. Available on all podcast apps now.
It is the world's most secretive election. When a pope dies, ancient traditions begin. A silver hammer, a destroyed ring, over 100 cardinals locked away from the world, choosing the next leader of 1 billion faithful. White Smoke. The path to a new pope, from Calaroga Shark Media, wherever you get your podcasts.